Okay, so I'm happy to be here with Wes Hurley. Wes is a director of Potato Dreams of America, which will be presented in Festival MiX Milano in the feature film competition as an Italian premiere. So thank you for allowing us to show your film as a premiere, and thank you for being here with me and the audience as well to introduce and talk a little bit about you and your filter. The first thing I would like to ask is that the production of Potato Dreams of America starts actually in 2019, but it is a film that you have wrote several years ago. So I wanted to know a little bit about the genesis of the project, also in relation with the two short films, one of which is a documentary and the other one is a voir short film that preceded the feature film. So the films that are Little Potato and Potato Dreams. I wanted to know what is the genesis of this film.
Great. I mean, first of all, I just want to thank you for including the film, and we're so honored to be part of the festival and really excited. Yeah, so the original script I wrote about 8 years ago, and it, you know, as is often the case with feature films, it was a struggle to raise money for it. So, you know, it took many years to pull the funding together. But in the midst of it, I got a government grant, a really small grant that allowed me to make a short film. And I thought it would be a great idea to sort of explore the same themes and ideas and the story in a short format. So we made a short documentary called Little Potato, which was shot in like 2 days, and then a VR piece, Potato Dreams. And the VR piece was really kind of a conceptual piece, helping us plan for the feature in a way and trying to figure out what the feature is going to look like. Because we always knew that half of the film is going to be set in the 80s USSR, which doesn't exist anymore. And, you know, just conceptually creating what does that look like? You know, I wanted it to look very stylized and theatrical and feel heightened, you know, sort of otherworldly. And so we started to experiment with those ideas with the VR piece. So if somebody watches the VR piece, I think they can see the progression of those ideas kind of from the VR to the feature film, because there's some similarities for sure. And then finally in 2019, I got a big grant from an organization called Creative Capital. They're New York based, and they're kind of the largest grants organization in the States for artists. So that really helped me to finally start, you know, going to pre-production for the feature. And that was kind of a starting point for pre-production. And then the other reason that we ended up making the film when we made it is I started auditioning little kids to play Potato, and I was very worried about not finding a good kid actor. I've never worked with kid actors before, so in my head it was going to be so hard, and I thought it may take us, you know, years to find the right child. And instead, very early in our audition process, we found Hirsch Powers, who was just so good. And my producer and I just looked at each other and we like, we have to make this now before he grows up, you know, because he's so wonderful. So that was kind of an impetus to really, you know, really start making the film before he grows up. And thankfully we finished shooting like literally a week before Seattle shut down from COVID. So we were really lucky with the timing.
So the other thing I would like to know is before Potato Dreams of America, you had worked on other feature films and short films where you did not really talk about your story. So this film is kind of autobiographical. So when did you find this need to speak more closely about your personal experience?
I mean, in some ways, I think it started when I was a little kid. And I try to show it in the film is whenever I had really traumatic or hard things happen in my life when I was a little kid, I would imagine that my life was like a musical movie. So I would just kind of transfer my experiences into a cinematic form. And, you know, that as I grew up, I kind of started to forget about that. When I really decided to start to make this feature is during Sochi Olympics in Russia, there was a lot of controversy about, you know, how government there treats gay people, and there's a lot of conversations. And it's the first time that I really publicly spoke about my experiences. I had a friend who asked me to write an article about, you know, growing up gay in Russia, and I wrote the article, and it became a really widely circulated article. It got translated into many languages, and people really started to reach out to me and talk about, you know, how their experiences were similar, and others would reach out and just say, like, we had no idea. There's nothing, you don't hear about Russia and gay people. And so I realized how rare those stories are, and I thought it's really important to tell my story, especially since it has a lot of kind of wild surprises. And you know, I feel like it's a very cinematic story. The film is very faithful to my life, so I like to say it's 99.9% exactly as things happen in my life.
Yes, and in fact, this brings me to another question that I wanted to ask you, is that do you consider your film to be like an activist film, or the film made by an activist? If there is kind of a message that you want to spread with this film, even if it's not a documentary, it's not a political film at you know, at first impact, but do you want to convey a special message in relation to maybe also different kind of audience, like Russian audience or USA audience or worldwide audience? So
I mean, I think absolutely that was part of why I wanted to tell the story is, you know, I don't want the film to feel overly political, because I think those films don't last in their relevance. You know, it's interesting how things that are overly political, they become outdated very quickly. but I think by just through the story, you know, it is political because I'm telling a story of from a gay perspective, from a place in the world that has very little gay visibility, or had, you know, when I was growing up, there was no gay visibility. I mean, I literally thought I was the only gay person in Russia, which is so dumb. But as a little kid, I really believed that because I was so brainwashed. And, you know, that's part of the message, is just, you know, we exist everywhere, all over the world. Gay people are everywhere. And also, you know, I wanted to speak to my experience as an immigrant in America, and how much, you know, there's a lot of conversations about American dream in the States right now, and a lot of people are very sort of skeptical about, you know, does American dream still exist? And I know so many other immigrants from all over the world, and I really believe in the American dream. I really believe that, you know, people sacrifice everything to come here and be here. And there's so much potential. And so I wanted to sort of have a rare positive look into that. But also with a sense of humor, and not, you know, really cheesy, because I do show sort of ridiculous, really ridiculous aspects of being an immigrant, like, you know, somebody who's a doctor working at a taco restaurant, you know, which happens a lot with immigrant stories, I think, where your life is so transformed overnight and you're like a totally different person in this different world, you know, like my mom was.
the last thing I wanted to ask is kind of a little bit elaborated, but I will make it. So, like VHS, television, and films in general are important cultural instruments in discovering, I think, oneself, and also the sexual orientation. for example, in your
Yeah.
case and in many cases. Art and cinema allows a recognition. So also this sense of inclusion within a community, as it was a case of The Living End by Gregg Araki, which is actually a VHS that, the protagonist of the film rented in a movie rental, and which is actually a detonator for his coming out. So I would like to know, in your personal history, which films made you dream of America when you were a child in Russia, in the URSS, and which ones helped you in the journey of your self-discovery and also your, sexual discovery when you were a teenager in America? And the thing
Yeah.
is, I wanted also to know is, was Gregg Araki a true inspirational, or is it just fictional?
So Gregg Araki subplot is definitely a true subplot. I First of all, when I came to the States, I was really shocked that there's a gay community and people say gay out loud. And so I remember we had a neighborhood video store and it had a gay and lesbian section, which was just beyond shocking to me. I mean, I can't even tell you how I was just, my eyes were this big, I was like, how is that possible that there's a gay? And of course I was afraid to go in there because I still carried so much like fear about, myself, and I was drawn to it, but I was afraid to go, and I would kind of sneak a look when nobody's looking and look around. And the living end cover is just so sexy, it's for a teenager who's raging with hormones. It was probably like the sexiest cover of a VHS in the store, so I was really, really drawn to it. And when I finally saw the film, I think it resonated with me, as a teenager. You're so angsty and confused, and it's a very angsty and confused film. It's kind of about that. So yeah, it definitely resonated. For films that really made us want to come to America, it's so funny because they're really cheesy films, but at the time they really helped us stay positive and not be depressed and be hopeful. But watching them now, I'm like, oh, they're so cheesy. But like, there's a movie, Curly Sue. I don't know if you've ever seen it, with James Belushi. It's a John Hughes movie. Big Business with Bette Midler and Lily Tomlin. That was a big one. We really loved Addams Family movies, Beetlejuice, Pretty Woman, Steel Magnolias, those kinds of 90s, I guess you'd call them comedy melodramas, um, While You Were Sleeping, those kinds of films. They were really, really, like, we would watch them every day. They were like therapy for my mom, because my mom worked as a doctor in prison, and it was so rough on her mental health, and it was just therapy for both of us. And then when we came to the States, I think the movie that most resonated with me and made me most happy as a gay teenager, I have to say, was Bound by Wachowski. Well, sisters now, because it was, in the gay and lesbian section, almost everything at the time, in the 90s, almost everything was about either coming out or HIV and AIDS, which is fine. Those are really important stories. And obviously my film is kind of a coming out film. But what I loved about Bound is that it was unapologetically gay, but it was about something else. It was like an action thriller movie where, lesbians kick ass. And so I would just watch it nonstop. It made me so happy. I loved when they, every time they won at the end, it was definitely my favorite, maybe still my favorite gay film. It's like, because it's both super gay and also kind of universal, and I mean, Almodovar, I would say, as far as filmmakers, is my most, that's a filmmaker that's I most admire. And I mean, it's probably cliche. It's probably what every gay filmmaker says, but I think Almodovar is the best filmmaker out there. He's like, he can do no wrong by me.
It's not bad. No, so thank you so much. I guess we have, made some intriguing suggestions to the audience that will come and see the film. So thank you so much, Wes, for your time.
Thank
and
you.
I don't know if you want to say something to the audience that still has to see the film in particular.
I mean, thank you so much for taking time to watch the film. Laura, thank you for the festival for having the film in the program. It's yeah, I'm really excited to share it with people that are both outside of Russia and outside of United States, because you will have a whole different perspective because you're not in either place. So I'm curious about how the film is received in places outside of Russia and US, you know?
We will let you know.
Yeah, and what people, what people relate to. Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time and for being with us at the festival. Not, in a physical way, but maybe next time with the next project.
Yeah, someday.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, thank you, absolutely.